Melodie Robinson, welcome to Between Two Beers.
Thank you. I'm a bit nervous, I think. It's a long time to talk about yourself or answer questions.
Yeah, we'll have some fun. We saw Melodie. Now, we were running a little bit late today, and I'm not going to blame anyone for it, but it was definitely more Seamus's fault than mine.
Well, that's weird, because in the car, you said we weren't going to apportion blame, and now you're blaming me, putting me on blast.
Anyway, the point was, we were sort of hanging out the window, yelling at Mel as she was crossing in front of us, and we were worried because she was going to get there before us. Did you get that a lot?
No, I was...
Did you get that a lot?
Well, I was looking in the car thinking, I hope they're really good looking and checking me out.
Sorry.
And, look, you were. Look at you.
Nice. Really nice things. That's good. Good start.
Yeah, happy start. Now, you've just come back from the Black Clash last weekend?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. That's a TVNZ competition that we've run for 5 years now with Juco, and I bloody love the Black Clash. After working in normal sports for so long with Sky, and also we do some pretty high-profile sports at TVNZ, it's really lovely to have an entertainment sport format which is about having fun and not too serious, and it's just great.
Geez, you must have some sway if you can shift the 6 o'clock news for the Black Clash.
We did, didn't we?
That is amazing.
You know, it's one of the only things they do it for.
Yeah, totally. How do you get that across the line?
Probably because some of the news crew wants to have a half-hour extra break. No, we own it. It works well, and we have some of the news talent in the production as well, and the whole company backs it. So it's great.
Phenomenal.
And, the ratings, we kick butt again.
Are you allowed to talk about the rating? Are the ratings out? Can we talk about the ratings?
Yeah, well, it reached 960,000 people this time. Putts, which is the ratings, have actually dropped heaps on normal traditional TV, as we know, but it's still rated really well and dominated about 44% of all viewing on all TV on the night.
Wow.
And as we progressed after the news, we actually beat the news, and TV1 rules supreme, so stoked.
Good numbers.
Yeah.
And Stephen is the numbers guy, so he's really going to
Like
appreciate those stats.
We've had a few guests that have played in the Black Clash, and we always talk about it with them, and they just glow when they talk about it, because it's not just the cricket, it's also the social aspect of it afterwards, and catching up with people from different sports who they might not have seen in years. How was the party? How was the after party?
Well,
There's a pre-party in it as well.
Well, there is a pre-party the day before. They were staying at an absolute mansion in Christchurch. I mean, I've never seen a place like this before. Pool, the works. They were drinking orange juice and vodka, apparently. Okay. And then before the game, because they're so relaxed, we actually did a TikTok show for the first time with Karen O'Leary, and we ended up in the changing room with the rugby players. Unfortunately, by the time that we walked in, they were all in their outfits, so I was a little bit disappointed.
You missed out on the show.
Yeah, but you got Richie McCaw and Kieran Reid and Graham, all of them, and they were so relaxed. Then we tried to get into the cricket changing room, and they go, no, like this. So we got kicked out of there. I was like, I hope they lose. They're so serious. And then the after party, it was at the casino. And, we brought a couple of people with us who, one of them was our intern, Matt, who's been working with us for the last couple of months. And their eyes were like saucers because, Scott Razor Robinson is there just chatting away. It's just really nice to see them in a really relaxed environment. I actually went up to the Honey Badger and I said, hey, do you remember I used to work for Sky TV, and I actually asked you the question on air why you called the Honey Badger, and you told the story live on rugby, on Super Rugby, and it went viral all around the world. Do you remember? And he goes, yeah, that's right. So, he's just cool talent, and he was very nice in real life. Yeah.
Amazing. You weren't tempted to sneak up to the alternative commentary position and put the cans on and re-roll the years back?
No, because I'm a rugby expert. Cricket is such a different sport. I would not be confident to sit there in the chair and even get amongst that.
Those guys don't talk about cricket either.
I was going to say, I don't.
I'll be good at that. I'll be good at that stuff. Karen O'Leary popped up for second innings with them and worked really nicely with them, so I thought it was cool adding in someone like her. She's lived and breathed cricket with her family, growing up and her dad, so she's the right person to do that, eh?
We talked a lot about Karen O'Leary in the last episode with Mike Minogue. Go back and listen to that if you're here listening to this one right now.
If we stay on the ACC, I feel like you might have missed the trick there. I feel like your personality, not that I know you particularly well or at all, would really lend itself to kind of that fun, uncensored kind of commentary, or is it the fact that you did the mainstream stuff first, it might be a little bit hard for people to kind of adjust to what Mel might really be like.
That's an interesting comment. When I started out as a presenter or commentator, Rick Solizzo was a fabulous mentor to me. He actually got me an interview at Sky TV and in the door when he was running Sports Cafe. And I was doing some pieces that year, and he would ring me up a lot to give me some feedback. And it was during the Lions tour or something like that. He goes, Melody, some of that was really good, but don't let your real personality come out on air. Be very, very careful. Because I did have to dial it back quite a lot because, I was a female very early in the rugby commentary scene, and so I had to be super serious. And so it is quite hard now because I've trained in that traditional broadcast style to actually relax and be something else.
Well, hopefully this platform allows you to relax into what Melodie Robinson is really like.
Yes. My kids have a code word for when I overdo it with my personality. It's called butter.
Okay.
Yeah, butter. And it's said a lot.
We hope we get butter on this.
Yeah. I often say my favourite type of guest, and it's someone who has excelled in sport and they've excelled in business or corporate world, but they also have a bit of fun. And I think the best example of that is Melodie beat us into the studio today, and before we were here, she'd cracked open a beer and was into it.
Yeah, that's nice.
I was like, man, this is a good fit.
Well, I was trying this lemon export. I haven't tried this before. And it's only 2% alcohol.
Yeah.
Not,
You can have
is
a
it gonna
low.
do the job?
Yeah, you can have a box. You can have a box before you go.
Yeah. No, I'm not usually a beer drinker, but a light beer is good. Yeah.
Well, here you are.
I don't know if we mentioned we're in the Export Beer Garden studio, but we are.
We are in the
it's
Export Beer
good.
Garden.
Yeah.
It's nice. They've just converted me.
Nicely done. I'll clip that out. Hey,
Take the box home.
This is normally the part of the show where we reveal little stories or little prods from friends or colleagues or family that we've canvassed. It's a very tight ship in the Mel Robinson crew. No one's given us anything.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a reflection of your position of power or, that they don't want to cross you, but is that by design?
We have a code with our extended group of buddies where we keep stuff with us a lot of the time. It's true because there's some very crazy stories and funny exploits over the years. And I'm not sure, because I'm quite old, I'm not sure if some of them would be considered
We've all got a past.
acceptable
Yeah.
these days.
All got a past.
That explains a lot.
Yeah.
Because sources who we have historically gone to and have given us a lot, they've just gone, good luck, or one little comment, like, something's going on here.
She's the best bloke I ever worked with.
Well, that is, yes, I am very much a tomboy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes,
Shout out Scotty Stevenson for that one.
I love Scotty. Yes, no, I've lived my life like a bloke and have been lectured about it at times, and then I just go like that,
Nice.
which is the one finger salute.
It's for those listening, just giving the fingers.
One at each of us as well, which was interesting.
All right, let's get into it. So I've written a little something to start. There'll be people here listening who don't know who Melodie Robinson is, believe it or not. So I want to start by outlining some of your successes in life. You won 2 Rugby World Cups with the Black Ferns. You represented New Zealand women's sevens in Hong Kong and Japan. You went on to become a journalist working in Parliament, and you moved through to Sky TV. You served them for 15 years as a presenter, commentator, reporter, and latterly as a communications executive. You've also graduated from the University of Auckland with a postgraduate degree in MBA and are now TVNZ's General Manager of Sport. I feel like we say this quite a lot on the show, Shay, but that CV's got to be up there, right?
Yeah, it's a very, very, very impressive CV.
You know, an MBA is a marriage breakup association, eh, guys?
That's why I've never done it.
That's why it's hard.
And the undergrad in Otago as well fell off the list there. But look, when you reflect on all of that stuff and the success that you've had, what do you put that success down to?
An incredibly supportive mum and dad who loved me, and actually, even though have been mischievous and have a humour which is probably a little bit naughty at times, they really built my confidence up. Yeah, they were great and very different from each other. Mum and dad was definitely mischief. He came to my first rep game for Otago in Canterbury, and he was in a gang at the time, which was Devil's Henchman, and he turned up on his Harley Davidson, and he had these horrendous rat's tails down the back of his head, which I always used to say to him, I'm going to get rid of those when you're drunk one time, Dad. But even though he looked scary with all his leather and the rest of it, and he was abusing the referee from the sideline, as they do, he came with me to the university, was at Lincoln University club rooms afterwards, and charmed everybody like you wouldn't believe, and they were just like, oh, your dad is the best. And he actually ended up doing a boat race with me when I graduated from Otago University, and he was bloody useless. He made us lose, actually. I was like, Dad, you're useless. Just a beautiful relationship with him, and my mother was more probably the reader, the intellect, and in a different lifetime she probably would have been incredibly successful in a different area of work than she ended up in. And she used to let me stay at home and pull a sickie and read books all day. So reading is probably one of the reasons I've ended up being okay at studying. I can read a book in a day really easily and actually ignore everybody, including my husband, my children, everyone, and just read a book. Love it.
Did you through your two parents? Did you feel like you carried? This is a really rudimentary, but like a devil and an angel on each shoulder, kind of representing each of the two parents. Because it seems like, just hearing that description and some of the research, it was an amazing blend that's kind of been the foundation for your progress and your success.
Yeah. So Mum she was a bit of a hot mama. She was blonde with green eyes, very attractive woman. Somehow Dad managed to chat her up in the square in Christchurch and took her out on a date, and she said, the next date we're at church. So he came along to the church, and in order to get everything over the line, he might have actually got her pregnant. That's why she had to get married to him. But he ended up converting to being a Christian for about 5 years or so. So he was at the front of the church all the time singing away. And then, what do they call it? He backslid. That's what my mother said. He backslid. And turned to being a heathen again, which is when he was the Devil's Henchman. And I can remember being young, around about, I think I was 11, and Dad had done tug of war, and then Mum had dropped him off at the Devil's Henchman headquarters, and she was really mad with him because he was there again, and we ran out of petrol or something in the Zephyr on the way home, and we had to walk to a phone box, and I'd had an asthma attack on the way, and she was on the phone to him. Johnny, you bloody awful. Johnny, this is your fault. Your daughter, she's had an asthma, and then she hung up to get the taxi. Those funny memories of that clash between the two of them, but it ended up just being an environment where we had a lot of laughs because she was actually very liberal and open-minded and really healthy for us kids, all who turned out very different from each other. Yeah.
I don't know too much about the Devil's Henchman, but I know your dad went on to become a cop.
Yeah.
And I imagine they're kind of at different ends of the spectrum.
Yes.
What happened there?
So he was a fireman for 20-odd years, and a lot of his family had gone to Cairns to live, better wage. He also had asbestos poisoning in his lung. At TAB, he had TAB when he was 5, so he only had 1 and a bit lung. So he went to Cairns for health reasons as well. And when he was over there, they were advertising for this new police unit in the middle of an Aboriginal reserve because they were trialling bringing the cops into the reserves to get to know the people and work with them and see if they could solve a lot of the issues that the Aborigines were having. So he became the lead officer on this experimental unit. And Dad being Dad, he just got on with it. He also looked like them, so they really felt comfortable with him. They did a lot of good work, so much so they actually rolled that the style of that unit all around Australia. So that's how he became a cop. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I don't want to go too heavy too soon, but I'm interested since we're here. You lost your dad a couple of years ago and you lost your mum a few years before that. How did losing these characters you've described change your outlook on life?
Mum was, there was a long battle with cancer. I think some of the moments of that were quite poignant was when she was in the hospice, and I have to say I'm very respectful of what nurses in the hospice do. So often if a hospice asks me to do something for them, I will do that because I know how important they are. But she was on, end of life drugs, and Dad decided he was going to come in and see her because really they had a great friendship and still flirted with each other every time they saw each other, which was quite funny. And she had a new husband who was a pastor, very straight guy, David. And he was in the corner of the room when Dad was in there, and Dad was there for 2 days, and she'd sort of lost a lot of her memory because of the pain and the drugs, and she thought she was in love with Dad again. So all of us kids were around her while she was flirting with Dad and telling David, shut up! Like this. So it was quite a lovely experience to be there with somebody, and my father and her, my brothers and sisters. So in a way you kind of grieved with them. I did accidentally miss a plane to come back for a funeral, which is another story, but I had to grease people up, and I was at her funeral half an hour late. And because I was hungover, I did have tears that were coming out like hoses. So there was, and it was in a church too, by the way. So just
a lot going on.
Oh my God. Anyway, and then Dad, we were very, very close. He was very ill for quite some time. I actually left a Super Rugby final. It was the Hurricanes and the Highlanders 2 years before that, because he was in the hospital ready to cark it, as I told him. And he opened his eyes, and I was there. He was like, "What the fuck are you doing here?" Excuse my language. I just went like this. And then he suddenly recovered. It wasn't anything to do with me. It was because he was this gorgeous nurse, and he started flirting with the nurse in front of his new wife. So I loved Dad, and I was pretty brassed off with him because he promised that he would come back and live with us or live in New Zealand. And we'd bought this place up north, which I thought would be great for him and Sue. But I didn't realise that he was too ill to travel, and COVID hit, and then we had our final lockdown in Auckland, and I'd rung him on the Sunday, and I knew he was going to die. And at the time I'd been going through this big health binge of not drinking, so I was running through the lockdown really, really healthy and blah, blah, blah. But I said to Marcus when he died, I said, "I'm sorry, but I'm going to grieve my way," which is also having a drink, and
that's your Irish heritage probably coming through.
It's definitely not the Māori side. So yeah, that was devastating. So I miss both of them a lot, especially because he was the influence on me with rugby. So I wish that I could tell him more things about what I'm doing. I said yes to that Celebrity Treasure Island because I know life is short, and it's his fault for carking it. That I said yes to Celebrity Treasure Island because I thought, stuff it, I'll give it a go.
Did you enjoy that experience?
Yes and no.
Okay.
Yes.
It's my favourite show.
Oh, it's great to watch. I tell you what, Ron Cribb, best dude ever. So him and I are great mates. I've made a lot of friends there. Lovely people. Yeah.
I'd really like to know what goes on when the cameras stop rolling, and the bonds and the friendships that are made then, right? Because I feel like it's drama created for camera.
No, it's not.
Okay, great.
No, it's not created.
Great.
Yeah. And when the cameras go, you are left there with your brain and you can't distract it. And so you end up going through this process of, I don't know, it's weird, thinking things through and blah, 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 because you're by the sea. It's just, I don't know. Plenty of people who meditate and spend time alone probably get that, but I like to fill my life with stuff so I don't address anything. There's a big thick piece of carpet to put things underneath, guys.
Yeah, sweep it under.
Yeah.
And haven't you done things like 4-day fasts as well? So
yeah.
You must be used to some of that solitude and some of those confronting thoughts that come and go.
That was with a lovely friend, Michelle Cox, actually, who...
Oh,
yeah,
Dr. Michelle Cox.
Michelle.
Yeah.
So I went with her, and there are other people there, and you do yoga, and it's quite funny. You're in a circle on day one, and people start crying and saying stuff. It's like being in an AA thing. It's great. I love it. And no, I love the fasting. On sort of day one, you struggle and I was running every day, by the way, while I wasn't eating. Day 2, by the afternoon, I felt amazing.
How'd you go day 3? That's where Stephen and
I
got
better.
To. Yeah.
Got better.
We did a 72, Steve?
Yeah, 72. You went hard. You went to the gym every day. Yeah, you kind of like energy just seemed to increase.
Yeah.
I could have gone 96.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I could have gone 96. Is that a regular practice, or is that just
haven't
one-off?
been back yet, but will do at some point. Yeah. No, I would recommend it. And you hang out with people that you don't usually hang out with, which is also nice.
Yeah, that seems like a really good part of it. Yeah. Thank you for sharing about your family. I know your dad would be super proud of you, and I want to paint the best possible picture of Mel through this episode. So I've got a bunch of areas that we want to go to. I just want to ask about, so you started at the bottom as a journalist, as a sort of commentator working at Sky, which we're going to get to later. And now you've got, as we said, this big, powerful position in sort of corporate world. Did you have to change a lot through the years to get there? Like, can Melodie Robinson be authentic in these sort of corporate business meetings, or how did you manage that?
Yes, the answer is yes, because I have a great boss in Kate Slater, and we have a TVNZ, which I have to say has got some incredible people. I won't call them woke, but I'd say that they are, they know who they are, and they kind of accept different types of people in the organisation. So yes, I feel like I can be myself, and sometimes I do push the envelope a little bit, but you know, during that MBA, one of the great things about it was you get quite a bit of self-awareness. There's a lot of work that they do on your leadership or your values and all of that stuff, which doesn't seem like it would be part of a master's in business, but it is. And that stuff made me start to think about my impact on others if I'm joking around all the time when I shouldn't be, so when to pull it back. So you can still be authentic, but you have to also be aware of your impact on other people as well. So I'm balancing that stuff a bit better. Not always perfect.
It sounds like you've come a long way from rugby training gear in the parliamentary press gallery.
Yeah.
Because that's where you started, right?
Yeah, man, that was great. Mana News put me in there. Duncan Garner was there. We were the two youngies. And honestly, that was one heck of a time because MMP just happened, and it was just after the Type 5 had come in with the national government. And we had all these really interesting people there. I'd interview, the Māori MPs like Tui, for instance, and all I would do is put a microphone in front of him, and because Māori men generally, especially ones who are fluent in Te Reo Māori, are orators, and so they'd just go blah, 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 like this. I'd never have to ask another question. Very lazy journalism, Melodie, but anyway, I'll take that away. And the females, new females there were very supportive and kind. Georgina Te Hiohio, Donna Awatera Huata, who was a great protester people will remember in the day. She was amazingly wonderful to me as well, and I really enjoyed it. There was a massive drinking culture, which, you know, rugby does have a binge drinking culture. This was quite full on. I was like, how do they even get legislation done, mate, if this is happening?
Was it on par, or was it over and above?
It was really interesting. The same as a massive big session from, you know, the 90s of a post-rugby would be happening in a party at Parliament. I did love Winston Peters. I enjoyed him. He's not a binge drinker as such. He's a consistent whiskey consumer. He
loves a dart as well, doesn't he?
Oh, he does. He was awesome. He's so, the best debater I've ever seen, and a little bit scary at the same time he was. But he'd make me get all of his whiskey bottles and then he'd forget about them, and I'd have this collection of whiskey, which I don't even like. But just wonderful things. I didn't know anything about politics or how legislation worked. I learnt that very quickly on the job, which was cool. And just really enjoyed my time there.
Do you still have strong relationships with these guys, Duncan Garner and Winston Peters, that you knew then, and you've all gone on to these incredible great things? I mean, Winston Peters was already there, but...
no, because as I've got older, I've debated with Winston a couple of times, and he's got very mad with me. So he told my husband, have a good life with your fucking wife. The last time we had a debate. He actually lives just across the bridge in Wharanaki, where our place up north is, so I'm so going to go and see him because I know that he'd still sit down and have a drink, and it would be awesome. So Dunks, yes, but you know, he married one of my best friends, Deanna, so when partners split, well, I still see her.
You got to choose a side.
Well, you don't choose a side, but you know,
side chooses you.
I mean, it's not like I'm going to go and hang out with him when I know his ex-wife particularly well, and you know, I'm not going to stuff my friendship with her, am I?
It must have been an amazing, just listening to you kind of reflect back on that, like the cast of characters that you were getting introduced to or interacting with on a day-to-day basis is amazing influence at such a young age too.
Yeah, it interests me sometimes if I have a conversation. I had a conversation with one of the Labour MPs at the tennis last week. He's a first term, and I was telling him all this stuff, and he was looking at me because I know just as much about politics, I guess, as he does, and I love it too, by the way. Told my husband I'd divorce him if he slags off Jacinda again.
Again?
Did he?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Did he slag her off anymore?
Well, he was very happy when the news came in when she was resigning, so that was...
Just a quiet smile.
No, it rang me up very loud and very rejoicing,
Really?
like on the phone.
He was too busy celebrating that than replying to our emails requesting for information on Melodie Robinson. Bastard.
Yeah, now he's private.
Yeah.
He's super private.
Yeah, we got a 2-line reply, I think.
Oh, he hinted that he was going to give us something, but then it never came.
Work must have been really busy that night.
But that's fine.
Yeah, he's private.
Okay, you sort of mentioned the influence you have on people as you were coming up, and we're going to get into what a trailblazer you were, but I actually want to read something from Honey Hirimi Smiler, who did give us something. So I'm going to read what she said. We asked her what Melodie Robinson's like. She says, in all honesty, Mel, in my eyes, is a fucking legend. I never really knew her in my earlier days. I just knew of her, but she has been a huge inspiration to me as I've navigated my way through the world of broadcasting and commentary. I don't even think she realises how much we look up to her. I remember watching her play way back in the day and thinking she's ruthless for a skinny forward, but she never backed down to any challenge and was often the one starting the scraps with her vocal chat. That's what I thought. Probably why she's an amazing commentator and presenter. She knows her shit and she just oozes confidence. Now, all of that makes sense to me, but going right back to the start, the biggest juxtaposition I'm struggling with is that you were also Miss Canterbury. So there's this ruthless, skinny forward who started scraps, but was also the most beautiful girl in the region. Is that young Mel?
Well, when you're a rugby player and you wear makeup on the field and you grease up the referees, it's a very handy tool.
Yeah.
Even with the headgear on?
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. No, definitely. So I wasn't the captain. I could still talk to the referee because I'd probably be too busy looking at my legs, quite frankly. No, I'm joking. I don't know. That's Miss Canterbury stuff was funny. My mum sent me to elocution lessons because she didn't want me to sound like my cousins, and that's a terrible thing to say in 2023 that she said that to me. She sent me to deportment lessons, which is a course that I did at this modelling agency, and this woman, Denise Saunders, who's pretty amazing woman, decided that she's going to take me under her wing, and part of her wing was putting me in Miss Canterbury and training me how to walk and to pretend that I was polite.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that was how that happened. I don't know, geez, these days I look back at that and think, oh, what the hell. I mean, when I went to uni, my first year, we all had to send in these photos, and I didn't know, because Canterbury people dress differently to other areas, right? I didn't know this. I wore pearls and red lipstick and stockings and stuff, and I took this glamour shot and put it on my thing for Unicole, and everyone else's shots were like ear techs and, like farming gear, and they'd all been at boarding school together, and I turned up to this Ferrari about all these people saying, who the hell's that idiot?
So Unicole was your university club rugby team, right?
Unicole was the hall of residence.
Okay.
University was the club.
Right.
Yeah. So I pretty much had to sort of prove that I wasn't some dolly bird that had red lipstick by going to play rugby.
Things like that spread quite quickly through like university halls and stuff like that. How quickly did it spread that you were Miss Canterbury once you got to Dunedin?
Quickly, and it didn't make my life easy, to be honest.
Really? It worked
Mate,
counter?
It was not good.
Counterproductive?
Yeah, no, I had no female friends apart from one who was a year older for around about 6 months. I'm not kidding you.
Wow.
I went to my reunion recently, and actually it reminded me of all of that stuff. I had males who were all my buddies, so one mate from school, Papanui High, who came with me, Scotty Ngatai, and then my next door neighbour was a guy called Richard Rangi. We used to call him Richard Rangi. We used to call him Richie the Rooter Rangi. Yeah. And he's still one of my besties. And I just got this collection of blokes, and then when I started playing rugby, I got some pretty cool mates through there as well, who I'm still wonderful friends with. So no, it wasn't good, and guess what? I brought myself a whole new wardrobe very quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How quickly did you adjust to scarfy culture?
quickly because of the rugby. Like that was the thing that just made everything. You know what rugby does? It's got such an impact around people's lives that we don't often talk about. Friendships is one of the first things. Values, discipline, having fun. Yeah, just all of that stuff. That was the key for me to start to adjust to Scarfie life.
Because I think most people's reference point to Scarfie life is Mark Ellis and how how he spoke so glowingly about the culture there and dunking your plums in the Octagon fountain. And
it wasn't an easy culture.
Yeah.
He was, so you know when we talk about privilege and people who are already way ahead of others, he was the golden shining light. The guy was incredible at cricket, rugby, he was good looking. He had a massive personality. Him and JL, John Leslie, were besties. They ruled the roost, man. And that, you know, we will all talk about our behaviour down there. It was quite edgy and very tomboyish, you know, talking about that plum thing. They used to run through the whole of university naked, like once a year. That was their tradition. We got sold off as slaves in our first year. Me and a group of 5 girls were brought by, 8 guys. And then we were made to do their house cleaning for the entire week and do whatever they said.
Gee, there's a gag that wouldn't work in 2023.
No way. It was banned. That was the last year it was banned. The next year we did it and then that was banned. Yeah. So it was an interesting culture.
But it builds character and personality as
well,
right?
It does. Yeah, I wouldn't have it any other way. I'm glad that I experienced that. It was a huge amount of fun.
Yeah.
But it was it was a bit of dog eat dog. So people who are more vulnerable absolutely got left on the wayside. Some of them managed to find their own groups and mates, and that was awesome. But it was an interestingly tough but fun and crazy environment.
And was club footy the anchor point for you as well? Like the safe space that you were able to be whoever who you wanted to be or who you were?
Oh, that's it's for women who are not allowed to, or it wasn't seen as the right thing to play a sport like that. That was the moment where I kind of worked out that I had a powerful body, that I didn't have to be super skinny because that was drummed into me with the modelling background, that I could swear like a trooper and it was all good. And just be myself. Rugby definitely brought that out. Yeah, it was cool.
All sports do. We've had so many guests at this point, and that sport background in high school and those formative years, the camaraderie, it's such an important base, isn't it, for success in the rest of your life?
Yeah, it did mean that there was a huge number of men that were very scared of me. So I didn't have a very productive time at university of getting boyfriends.
Really?
No. God, no.
I find that hard to believe.
I don't believe that for a second.
No. I had one boyfriend.
Okay, so you're really good at rugby, and you're in the happy place, and you go on to play 18 times for the Black Ferns, and you win 2 Rugby World Cups. But I heard somewhere that in perhaps those early days, it was $15 a day was what you were getting paid.
Yeah.
$15 a day.
Yes.
How amateur was that with those early days? How amateur was that environment?
So the first year I made it was 1996, where we had a guy called Daryl Suasua as the coach, and George Scudder was in charge of all of the money around the national teams. And we also had a chairman at the time, Rob Fisher, who came to one of our games, a trial, and said, oh, actually, they're really good. And so the chairman decided that they were going to invest money, so that I was very lucky, not like Anna Richards, who was, in it since 1990, that in 96 they started to fund the clothes, the boots, medical, and $15 a day. We all had to work, right? We all had jobs, so we all just went on leave. So the $15 a day was actually just spending money. And, of course, you got all your food and everything provided, flights, hotels. The hotels went flash. But back then we were just grateful to be there and out playing. So we just never really thought about, this is a stink deal or anything like that. We just wanted to be there, play really, really well. Yeah.
I guess you've had a lot of time to reflect on your time in the Black Ferns, and I wondered if you could talk to us about, in 2018 there was a capping ceremony where there might be a bit of a funny tale to it, where you were kind of recognised for what you'd given to rugby and what your number was, perhaps.
Yeah, I think I was doing emceeing the question and answer, so I had to, behave myself until that point. And then this is the first ever capping ceremony they've ever had for the Black Ferns. So if all those 5 years of internationals, no one had been capped, and so we had all of the originals in the team in the room. So from it was 91 or 90 through to 1996 that were capped in the ceremony. So all of our old buddies were there, and we were all bloody excited. We were all dressed up in our, number one, all looking gorgeous, all of us. One poignant moment was Sue Garden-Bishop, who was one of my coaches, and I just love and adore her. She was amazing. She had passed away from leukemia. Of course, she married Steve Bishop and has 3 very talented kids as athletes, and her eldest son was there to receive her cap, which was beautiful. And the great thing about him was he was in a room full of a lot of young hot women, and they were all over him, and I was like, there you go, look at that. He's like, thanks mum. And she taught him how to pass, not his dad, so okay. And then it got to Farah Palmer. She was before me. She called her up, and then it got to me, and Brent and Pete goes, Melodie Robinson, Black Fern number 69, oh for God's sakes. And everyone laughed and thought it was hilarious. And I think that Farah Palmer was actually 69. Yeah. Or Hannah Porter was somebody who
conspiracy.
Yeah, totally. But I love it. I love my 69. I love it.
ACC will love that too.
Yeah, it's a good little clip.
Watch them clip that one out. But reflecting back on the whole package, I mean, we're going to talk a little bit later about what the Black Ferns have done now and with the World Cup, but laying the groundwork for that and creating the platform for them to get to where they are, that must be really special.
Yeah, it's amazing. And Anna Richards is definitely one of those people who is highly responsible for all of this, and some of the earlier ones, Fiona Richards, Helen Mann, like so many of them who actually paid for their trips, say to the 1991 World Cup. And then we had key influences like your Daryl Suas. Just there's so many of them on the outside who saw us and thought this is amazing. Family members, whatever. Laurie O'Reilly, he was Commissioner for Children. He was a massive supporter of women's rugby for years. And then we had these women that would come through, and actually, while you're playing, you can't say too much because we knew it was unfair, and we were getting shafted, and we didn't have any games, which is probably the real thing we wanted. We wanted competition. We'd only get like 3 or 4 test matches tops a year. That was the hard thing, turning up to a Women's Rugby World Cup and having 2 tests before that. But once we retired, it was some of those women who were able to start speaking on behalf of our players now, which has been really significant. Tammy Wilson, who is our fullback, she's on New Zealand Players Association. She had a huge role in the Silver Lake deal. She's finalising a PhD. She's, always in there. She was talking on behalf of all players and women's, with the Silver Lake, doing the deal with Rob Nicol. So it's all of those previous players that have come through to contribute to where the women are now, which is great. Still a battle to go before people believe that the Black Ferns can be commercialised, which I just, in my mind, I'm just like, you're kidding me. Is
that what your MBA was in?
Yeah, I did. Why do big corporates not typically sponsor women's sport when we're the most powerful consumers in the world? And it turned out that in New Zealand, most sports bodies don't have a framework with how they approach their sponsorships. So most go for a traditional, you can have the front of the jersey, or you can have naming rights. Well, a lot of corporates don't want that, particularly if they're looking for sponsorship of women's sports teams, and it's how you approach or align yourselves with their strategy and go outside the box. But still not many people approach sponsorship like that in New Zealand yet. So still got some work to do, but hell, that Women's Rugby World Cup was a great statement to say to the world, look at how we play and look at how amazing those women are as well.
Absolutely. And like I said, we're going to talk about that a little bit later. The question you asked for your MBA is a nice seg into, because there's 2 journeys running concurrently, right? There's a rugby journey and your journalism journey. And in your last year of university, third year of uni, research project on the coverage of female sport, and you asked a very interesting question and were quite surprised by what you found.
Yeah, I was. The question was, how much women's sport is covered by mainstream media? The answer was 7%. And when you're a young woman who grows up in New Zealand, it's like, I always wanted to be an All Black. I didn't really realise that being a girl couldn't be an All Black. I looked at it and thought, this isn't right. And that was the moment where I decided, okay, well, how many female sports journalists are there that play rugby? 0. Okay, right. Sports journalism is for me because hopefully I can impact on those numbers one day. That's basically why I wanted to be a sports journo.
And was that a light bulb moment?
Yeah.
Like when you read that and processed that, you were like, fuck, that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah, I did. I got quite angry for about a week. Yeah. Lots of people would have been bored of hearing from me at that week. But once you decide on a pathway and you're being proactive, you can let all that raru, as we say, go. And I put the steps in, which was, the first step was you have to have, to get into a postgrad in journalism, you have to actually show that you're serious by writing stories. So I went to Otago Daily Times and they were like, ho-hum. So I started writing for, I think it was the Salient? Oh, no, that's Wellington. It was a student newspaper in Dunedin on a team called the Seedy Dogs. Yeah, and they were just all of my mates who were playing social rugby, but some of the All Blacks would pop in and, like, before the Otago players would pop in, be really naughty, and then I'll be reporting and then they'll get snapped. It was good. So because of that, I ended up applying for a couple of journalism courses and got onto the one in Wellington, which took a year. So that was interesting, and I really loved the start of my journalism career too.
Yeah, that's the perfect platform and a great example. You find something out, you ask a good question, you find something out, you get angry about it, and then you do something about it. And then you start, I'm going to do something about it. I'm going to write. I'm going to get involved. Can you link us up to Murray Deaker in radio sport? How quickly did that link happen after you started doing your writing?
So after I spoke to Rick Salitso, he introduced me to another producer who was quite keen on me coming in, and I put a CV together, and then, being a dumbass again, I put a glamour shot on the front. Didn't learn from uni, did I? What a dumbass.
Or did you?
Maybe. Actually, those referees taught me it's not too bad to be glamorous. And it was Kevin Cameron, the head of sport at the time, went, okay, yeah, she's got journalism. She plays rugby for New Zealand. It's interesting. So he put it in front of John Flett, the CEO, and John goes, no, get rid of the dolly bird. I want a proper women's rugby player. So meanwhile, at the end of my rugby career, last year or so, I'd started hating my coach just because that's what you do when you're a mature athlete. You think, I can have a say here, and you can't.
That's it, right? That's the exit path,
yeah,
isn't it?
Totally.
You either fall out or you're like trying to make massive change.
Well, when you have a coach who is in control and autocratic style, mature athletes who want to be part of the leadership, if they don't become part of the leadership, that's when there's quite a bit of frustration. So that's when I decided to go to a sports psych, Craig Lewis, who gave me this plan. He diverted my frustration to, what do you want to do? And we put a plan in place. And on the top was, number 1, go and ring Murray Deaker and ask him how I can get into the industry. So I went and had a coffee with him, and he is awesome and hilarious and wonderful.
Was that a cold call to Murray Deaker?
Yeah, on the landline.
Wow.
Hello, Murray. It's.
Did you ring in like on talk on like Sport with Deaker, like on the actual open panel show?
Yeah, I got his number from somewhere. I don't know how. Hello, Murray. And he said, come for a coffee, and he said, okay, well, I'm going to put you on my Murray Deaker show, and you can be in the background. You can moderate the internet, which was new at the time, and all the the chat on there. And he goes, and I'll give you a couple of shifts at Radio Sport. So the internet side for Murray Deaker was hilarious because Mertz would get on there all the time and just slag off Mertz. So that was amusing. I'd have to lie through my teeth about what he said. But the radio show was quite good because I just got to do rugby stuff. I avoided cricket because, like I said, I'm not a cricket expert. Yeah. And I got this guy who rang up and said, all you women's rugby players are lesbians. And I went, oh. And then I went into some rant about something technical, and I didn't know where the drop button was. Anyway, John Follett, the CEO, by chance was driving home, and he heard that show, and then he rang Kevin the next day and said, now, I know the female we're going to get. She was on the radio last night. And Kevin said, well, that's the one that had the CV. Yeah, John always talks about that. So Murray was very instrumental. And he asked Murray about me as well, the CEO. And Murray gave me a very glowing reference. And he's done that for quite a few people, actually. Willie Losey, Ricky Swinell. So he's been a very generous, wonderful man.
Because
I just want to touch on one point there, and we're going to keep moving along on your journalistic journey. But the balls or the guts or whatever you want to call it to cold call someone who's in a position of power and meet up with them for a coffee and put it at the top of your list, like that's so unique, that's so rare. And I think that's when we have guests who have risen to the top, like they've got that in them, that self-starter. And it's, you don't see that very often. I think that particular example just shines a light into why you've gotten to the place you are in so many domains.
It's funny, I don't even understand why I'm like that. I did it when I was playing for Wellington Rugby. I rang up the CEO of Wellington Rugby, who happens to be David White, who I'm now working with the cricket moving forward. I said, hi, I'm Melodie Robinson. I play for your Sevens team. I've just got the New Zealand team. I need to raise some money to get to Hong Kong Sevens. And, the front desk put me straight through. I was like, what? Anyway. He goes, how much do you need? I said, $6,000. He goes, yep, done. I said, what?
Yeah.
Gave me $6,000. I didn't have to sell a sausage.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. So he knows that I owe him, so we've got a nice relationship.
But asking, just asking people, and because so many people are willing to give their time and their guidance and their mentoring, but just not many people ask.
Yeah, so that's why if anyone ever rings me for a coffee or advice, I always make time.
Yeah, because you've had some massive influences, right? Like I think it's understated maybe for those that aren't familiar. Deaker was like the king of sport at that stage.
My gosh.
He was on every night.
Yeah.
On News Talk ZB.
Yeah.
He had his show on Sky. He was super influential.
Yeah, he was huge. Yeah, went for the big one. Yeah.
Well, why not? Go for the top, right?
Yeah, and we became great friends. And even when he had his meltdown on air, we remained great mates. It was also quite comical. I went over to see him the week after, and he was in his pajamas and his dressing gown and slippers, withdrawing from the the body corp of his apartment. And then he said, come for a coffee with me. And he walked down Takapuna in his pajamas. I was like, no, there's definitely something going on here. And then he sat me down to tell me about his bloody love life with Sharon, his wife.
Okay. We're best friends.
And she had to take his cell phone off him because he was ringing everybody. And then because he's really sneaky, he brought himself a burner. He started ringing people.
Wow. It's the original burner.
Dear.
So big call from Deeks and getting you on board. So much kudos to him. And then John Follett as well, bringing you on Sky. And I'm really keen to dig around this area. So he brings you into the Sky commentary team. First rugby commentator in the world, right? Like this is a big player.
Female rugby
player in the world. Yeah, they had rugby commentators before then. But those early years at Sky, like boys culture, lads trips, you're one of the boys on tour. The good and the bad. How do you reflect on that transition?
Well, maybe it was rugby and Otago University that actually normalised a lot of that culture anyway. So I didn't find that intimidating, and I think rugby had given me so much confidence that I didn't really process it at the time. And actually I became great friends with so many of the crew. So a lot of that was amazing. I'd say Murray Mexted was probably the one out of all of the commentary team who at that time was extremely liberal and open and accepting. So there'd be incidents where, so after a game finishes, this may not be the case now, but it certainly was then, if you're overseas with your commentary team, you've only got them to socialise with, and if you don't get invited out with them, well, you're by yourself. So you have to try and, be mates with everybody, blah, blah. Well, my first trip I did overseas, I didn't get invited out by the two main commentators. And Murray was the colour. And he would see me because I'd be sending stuff from an internet cafe. This is how long ago it was.
Stephen loves it. He still thinks they exist.
Oh, my God.
He still references them all the time.
Should we go to an internet cafe and print some stuff out?
Oh, my God. And it would take 2 hours to send like a 5-minute clip. It was so bad.
It's so funny.
Mix would walk by and he'd go, what are you doing, Melodie? I said, working. He goes, well, you coming out? I'll be like, oh, yeah. And then I ended up having the best experiences in the world because Max knew the best bars, man. Man, did I see some stuff. It was so cool. Ended up having a wonderful time anyway with him. So it wasn't super easy on those trips overseas, but in New Zealand, I had a woman called Andrea McVeigh who was the producer, who again was a bit of a trailblazer when it came to sports journalism. Ex-netball player. She was incredible. She actually trained me. She was the person who had me in every Monday telling me, what do you think about this? Blah, blah, blah. She was amazing. And if I had her there by my side, I was all good. And Carmo, Ian Jones.
That's what I was going to... That's what I was going to ask. Did you get training in... I'm assuming you got training in being a rugby commentator, but no one can give you training in being a female rugby commentator.
You don't get training to be a rugby commentator.
Yeah, do you not?
No.
Here's a mic, here's the camera,
yeah.
Good luck.
So now the process is better, but then it was non-existent, so sink or swim. And a lot of very good rugby players who understood the game wouldn't last. So that was really bloody hard. And yeah, no, I did have, she would say to me, you have to lower your voice. If you hear a female commentator on a rugby game, even in today's game, and their voice is high, you'll get reaction from the audience. And that's not right, but it will happen because it stands out. So female commentators have to consider their intonation, their depth, and how they commentate, and kind of make it a little bit, how would I say, less up and down and quite constrained. It's quite a difficult thing to do.
Wow.
You've got to do it way more than a bloke. A bloke can have a lisp or whatever and no one will give a stuff.
That's fascinating.
That is really fascinating. Like I've never even thought about it like that.
Yeah. And even women with huge amount of credibility in sports will still get the, what's she doing there? Why do we have so many women? Still happens a lot.
And at that time, you were the only one fielding all of that criticism.
Yeah. Lucky we didn't have social media, eh?
Yeah.
Just radio sport, guys.
But how did you... Did you develop a thick skin? Did you...
No, I got stress symptoms.
Yeah, did you really?
Yes, I couldn't sleep for 6 months. Unfortunately, I was going out with Walshy at the time, so that made it worse. No, he was fine. He was good. I talked to a lot of people at the time about how I was going to deal with it, and even my boss, Kevin, and I decided, here's another one of those things, that I would go and talk to the key person that was doing a lot of the stuff. And it took me quite a few phone calls to track the person down. And so I just asked him questions. Why are you saying this? Why are you doing this?
What did he say?
There was a conversation around my behaviour, my tomboy behaviour, and the expectation of how I should be behaving as a commentator. But again, you asked me, am I authentic? I'm never going to change myself just because of perception of how you should be. No.
And that's why you're successful. That authentic self is what separates you from the rest. Yeah. That's why I'm so excited to talk to you today. It's because I listen to interviews and you can answer the questions, but there's that sort of spark, that laugh, it's real and people respond to that authenticity.
And well, let's not also say that I'm perfect, because yes, there's behaviour that you would do as a tomboy / girl or whatever when you're out, which people go, whoa. So you do have to pull some things back, but that doesn't mean you still can't be your vivacious personality.
Yeah, but there's a whole lot of other people that are behaving exactly the same way that nobody gives a shit about because they don't feel like they can take a pot shot at that. It's like the fact that you have a face and you have a presence in the public eye that people think, oh, fucking that's fine, I can just shoot off whatever I want, right? It's just fucking horseshit.
Yeah, so it's been a bit of a journey, that. It's been interesting. Now that I'm old, instead of dumbing down what we were doing or what we were talking about, I'm just really honest. Oh, yeah, we did this, we did that.
Yeah.
The Walshy stuff is interesting as well, because I remember feeling like that was so unfair that everybody's honed in on that. And maybe that's me looking back at it with adult eyes now. But you think about it, and like, who the fuck gives a shit these days about who's seeing who? But it was like it was across all of the magazines, it was across all of the media, it was radio sport conversation, it was hot news.
Well, Walshy was a different style of referee. He was very charismatic and loud and arrogant and would abuse players on the rugby field and have fights with them. And, him and Carlos Spencer, mate. Jeez, they had something going on, I tell you what. Yeah. And of course, Mertz would be chipping away. Like, so many colourful things around Walshy being a referee that you don't usually see in a referee. So that was quite interesting, yeah.
Was he the first referee that wore white boots?
Probably. God.
That's a real Shay question. Yeah. He's a details guy.
I just hate that because you're only wearing them for fashion.
Yeah. Just see the amount of product he used to put in his hair.
Well, and did you have any say on how long? Because he had quite long sideburns for a little while there as well. I think he needed to pull those back.
No, I didn't. I didn't say anything about them.
We've got a clip teed up, and I don't really know how to seg into it, and I don't know how it's going to go, but it's a viral one, and I wonder if we can reflect on it.
Disguise Royal reporter Melodie Robinson.
That's right. I'll say it again. This is a great place to get ready for the royal wedding tonight. In fact, the reaction in the Highlanders region has been a little bit mixed to this wedding stuff. Here in Dunedin, costume stores have totally sold out of tiaras, your bowler hats, your Union Jack flags, and there'll be parties all over town after this game tonight. But in Wanaka, a pub called The Bullock has absolutely banned all wedding television, and they are only showing the 2 rugby games tonight, so good on them. I better just check with these guys. Do you guys give a stuff about the wedding tonight?
Don't get me wrong, Kate Milton's hot, but she's no Melodie Robinson.
Now, what do you reckon Kate and Will's going to get up to on their honeymoon?
Oh, can we say it on TV?
Well, it depends.
Anal.
Okay, that's very inappropriate. What's going to happen in the game tonight? How can the Highlanders beat the Blues?
It's going to be a strong game. The Highlanders come out on top. It's going to be like a piano, finely tuned. It's going to be a game of 2 halves, but Highlanders will come out victorious. It's going to be awesome! $386!
As you can see, it's all about the game tonight here. The conditions are perfect. The ground is a little bit wet underfoot, but that's sweet.
The comment, the anal sex comment, is obviously like grabs your attention, but I think it was the reaction from Sumo in the booth afterwards. They couldn't stop laughing.
So good, so good. Our boss at the time, Richard Last, maybe about 6 months later, had gone to the Australian Broadcasting School to speak to them. And as part of that, he'd watched the presentation beforehand and they'd rolled that clip. He told me this, he was hilariously laughing. And in it, after it, they said, now the female reporter behaved extremely professionally. She didn't react. She turned around, she threw to the camera. But the 3 guys upstairs, that is not how you react to an interview ever. And Richard was just going, oh my God, that's my team, you know.
It's 100% right though, isn't it? Like you've dealt with that immaculately, and it goes back to the 3 giggling schoolboys upstairs.
But it was very funny. We had, our planes were cancelled. We were there late to the OB. They shortened the build up to half an hour instead of an hour. I didn't have my friggin' makeup done. I had that hat on. And, you know, I'd worked in telly for quite some time and no one knew anything about me. And then the only thing that goes out is that. I have met with those guys afterwards and, you know, they're still dining out on that.
Have you?
Yeah.
Who reached out to who?
One of the comedy shows, Jono and Ben actually, Jono and Ben, they brought them back after about 10 years.
That's so good.
Yeah, it was quite good.
I do wonder about that, and I'm not sure the timelines are quite right, but like the internet was kind of in its infancy then, so when something goes viral like that on TV, how are people seeing it?
It was YouTube. So
YouTube.
Yeah, so they record it on their phone and popped it up on YouTube. Yeah.
Okay.
And it, you know, because it was Will and Kate's honeymoon and they were meant to be coming to New Zealand, and that's why I asked the question. But I prepped them. I said, look, this is what I'm going to ask you. Don't swear. And they said, okay, we won't swear. Yeah. So they said that.
And he's like, I'm not sure if I can say it. And you're like, well, maybe.
Depends what it is. Did you have any idea that, I guess you wouldn't have any idea that was going to be the remark that came through? No inkling whatsoever.
But they were good talent, so, you know, sometimes stuff happens. Look, bring some fun to a broadcast.
Is Staffy giggling off camera once?
Yeah.
I bet.
Staffy just thought it was the best ever. Well, I travelled with him forever. It's another one who I've really become great friends with as well.
Yeah. We need to get him on the pod, actually.
Perpetually
he's a great
single. Perpetually single.
Oh.
Yes.
We can delve into that.
Man after my own heart.
That was my other observation of you as a commentator. They always did the sort of the halftime and the little questions at the end, and they're always hard work, and most questionnaires miss it, and it's just a waste of time in my opinion. You seem to always get something more. You always seem to, the questions were good, or you had some sort of camaraderie. I don't know what it was with the players.
Oh no, there's a technique. It's all about process and technique, to be honest, in those roles. And so when you do roles in commentary, they're all very different. So play-by-play is your TJs or your Grant Nisbets, and they are playing everything in action. As soon as that stops, a second or colour commentator comes in to analyse, and then your sideline comes in with anything extra that adds to what they say, or anything that you can't see off the shots or cameras. And then your interviewer should always pre-prep the end questions, and so I'd have a pad and I'd change them as I went through a match all the time, and that has to be a question. If you listen to a lot of sports commentators, they'll make a statement. So how does a talent, an athlete, come back if you've just made a statement? You know, they've just played a game. Their brains are starved of oxygen. Ask them a question. And always, I was always short as well, because it wasn't about me. People wanted to hear about what they said.
Yes. Yeah. Short and sharp. We had Laura McGoldrick on the podcast, and one of the most fascinating post-match Q&As was when her husband Martin Gupta was in the Super Over, and she had to go out and do a quick, and I was like, do you prepare what you're going to say? She's like, no, my mind was just all over the place. I didn't know what the hell was going on. I was just heartbroken, and then I had to come up with a question. I was like, fuck, that's an interesting dynamic.
Yeah, I think she's incredibly sassy and wonderful, and she's authentic on screen, and I'm so pleased that she's got another crack at a full-time contract with Sky this season and back on Super Rugby, and I think she's also doing the league, so I think that's just amazing for her perseverance to not bow out, because Sky hired her as a very young presenter on cricket, and she was very talented back then, but it takes some time to develop some capability and expertise around that role. I don't think I was really ready or very good at commentary until my 10th year at Sky TV, when I finally found my feet, and I think she's in a similar position now. And people had a thing about her having a husband in the team. Oh, who gives a stuff? Yeah. Like, honestly, it means that she can ask a better question than you and I, because she's heard something else. Right?
And you mentioned people like Laura, also Ricky Swannell. Like, you smashed down the door for these people to come in. Does that? I know we're all Kiwis, and I know it's hard to take those praise, but that must fill you with some real joy about those that have come since you started this kind of journey.
Well, you don't do it alone. Actually, Ricky and I set up the wonderful group together, which was about supporting women in sports media and more female sports coverage. So it's always about other people as well. Ricky Hanna is another female producer who's helped a lot of women through, and she certainly doesn't get any recognition. But I think I was super chuffed just at the end of the year when Ruby Tui, she's mentioned a couple of times in her book, but she said to me, and she sent a little note in the book that I brought of her, was how me and Sumo actually got her into Sky TV, and I also connected her with We Are Tenzing, and they are the reason that she has that brand, because she creates stories, and they gave her that expertise. And to see her blossom the way that she has is just, that there to me is just, I feel proud of that.
How many times meeting Ruby Tui was it before you were like, oh my God, the amazing talent, we need to get her?
So she came up to us at Timaru Sevens, and she said to me and Sumo, I want to do what you're doing. Like this. It's just rough as guts. And I thought, oh yeah. So she had a big chat, and she was doing her second year media at Canterbury University. So we gave her our numbers, and AD had sorted her to come for a rehearsal. But we didn't tell her it was a Crusaders versus Blues game. She turned up, and she was on, a big OB with, 12 cameras, all the crew. And the big boss was there at the time, texting Sarah. And they go, okay, Ruby, you're doing an audition with Melodie. And she was like, holy shit. She nailed it.
You can swear.
Oh, she was frigging good. And Tex goes like this, Melodie, we've found your replacement. Yeah, just from there. And from then on in, very slowly she got booked. She's obviously a full-time athlete, so she hasn't got a huge amount of time to dedicate to that. And now that she's kind of expanded with what she does, she's more than commentary. She does so much more. It's just...
It's been incredible
great.
watching that brand grow. The big blow-up one was the interview after the Sevens? Yeah, the Olympics.
Yeah.
And that went huge.
Yeah.
And then, sort of just carried that on and kept that level, and then just like the superstar she is now. Like the biggest name in New Zealand sport, I'd say, and it's so cool.
Yep.
Like I was watching the Black Ferns with my boys, 6 and 4, and by the end of it, they knew the names. They were Ruby Tui, and they were Portia. My 4-year-old was running around saying, "I'm that fast one. What's her name, Dad?" Portia Woodman.
Yeah,
like,
Stacey Walker, that's another favourite, you know, with a big smile.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so cool to see that.
It's cool. It's cool. I just, before we get onto that stuff more, I keep saying that, but a few little bits and pieces like the hair, rod and gun, having to make like clothes for you. Those areas just seem so ridiculous now, but it's not that long ago, right? Like, there was no wardrobe for me, and Rod and Gun was a sponsor, so we had to wear Rod and Gun. But Mike from Rod and Gun was so wonderful, and even when I did the America's Cup clothing sponsorship with them, same 2 guys that I worked with way back then when I started, and they made special shirts and special jackets and special moleskins. Yeah. Happy days.
Oh yeah. So that was interesting. And then, because when you're on telly as a female, the first thing that people do is talk about what you look like. So I started to get all this feedback about my clothes I was wearing or my hair and all this other shit. And I didn't have any extra money for wardrobe. And I actually went to Tui McKendry, who was the executive producer of League and netball and other sports, and she was very supportive and actually gave me, I think it could have been $4,000 for the whole year to buy clothes, which was very generous. And then the next time I got cash was Tex Texera was telling me, my wife tells me that your hair looked like an old horse's tail and we've got to do something about what you look like on air. And I said, well, yeah, that's easy. You just have to give me some funding to sort it out. And he goes, how much do you want? I said, $10,000. He goes, done. So I got $10,000 every year for my hair and makeup.
And you know
Isn't
what?
that wonderful?
Yeah.
I never, until I heard about it, I never processed the straightened hair thing until I looked back at shots of you from back then.
I look pretty heinous with straight hair.
With I prefer the curls. With the straight hair to what you rock now, and that kind of Caucasianizing of you is like, it feels icky saying that now in 2023, but it was a real thing.
Yeah, when you're on what they call an MCU, which is that tight single shot, or reading auto cue, presenting in any way, there was a set look around females and how their hair should be, and it was non-distracting and it was very coiffured, and that's what they were trying to do with my mop, and it so did not work. It went the opposite. I went to boxing one morning and they were like, holy hell, what was wrong with your hair yesterday? Yeah, thanks guys.
But did that cause any like a identity kind of challenge within yourself, that you were being presented externally as something different to what you are?
It's a different era. So you, the way that we coped 15 years ago is very different to today, where you are empowered to say something about it and have the support from leadership to say, yep, no, that's not right.
Yeah.
You know, so like many women of my era, I had to just get on with it, to be honest. And I knew that if I had made a fuss, I would have been labelled high maintenance, and no one wants that.
Difficult to work with.
Yeah, totally. You know, I was about longevity and, you know, fitting in and the rest of it at that point, whereas I've learned a few lessons over the years, and I don't really do that as much. I'm nice when I say things, but and also if someone says to me, oh, I'm not happy with this, I'll go, yeah, okay, let's sort that. Yeah.
Going away on tour with broadcasters, we've spoken about as like a family. You're so close. And I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about Willie Lose, because I know you were over on tour in South Africa with him when he passed.
Yeah.
That must have been such an incredibly difficult thing to overcome when you're somewhere working.
Yeah, it was, that moment was very surreal. We'd gone out to lunch. We were ringing him. he'd been out with KT, Kaltanana, and the other crew the night before. I'd avoided them like the plague. I was staying in and trying to be, focused. And he didn't turn up. And then KT had gone back to the hotel before I got there, and he rings me, he goes, "Get back here now." So I knew, I was like, holy shit, guys, something's happened, we've got to go. So we raced back, and Steve Jamieson, who's the executive producer, who's a Kiwi guy, was there looking shocked. So I knew. And at the same time, Kaltanana had rung Bailey Mackey, who is New Zealand Rugby. He was over there to grease up, the Sanzar lot and do all that stuff because he's on the board. Well, he is incredibly deep in terms of tikanga Māori and what you do around a death, and Willie was Tongan Māori. So he ended up doing, it's like a pōwhiri or it was like a, we stood there and talked about Willie for a long time, and we got it out, and it was incredible for releasing a lot of the immediate grief that we held, and we had drinks and stayed up till 3 a.m. talking about Willie. And it helped us get through that weekend. Weird as that is, it's just one of those things, just a different part of a culture which talks things in a hui type setting and works things out together. So that was great. And the thing about Willie, which I went to his tangi, his funeral, and it sort of came to light that he took quite a similar path to me, because he was a Tongan bloke that no one thought could ever make it as a commentator. Again, he was very authentic as well, with all of his suits and his perfumes and his face creams and the rest of it. And he had some ups and downs in his broadcast career as well. And again, he's had some learnings on the way too. And it was just amazing to hear what kind of an impact that he had on Pacific Island people generally, because they could see someone that looked like him or someone that they knew who was a key part of that broadcast, and way before any other real prominent Pacific Islander. So it's great. It's amazing.
Did you have some of that, Shay?
Yeah, big time. Like I'd interacted with Willie off and on through radio sports stuff, through going in and out of the offices and things. But then he came up to Papua New Guinea in 2015 and was part of the international broadcast for the Pacific Games, and just such an engaging and amazing person.
Yeah.
And exactly to your point, growing up as a person of colour, to see someone like yourself on TV and go, oh wow, okay, that's cool. I can do that.
Yeah.
It was really powerful, and it was a little bit the same. And I don't want to keep banging down a door down of like really sad things, but I was really affected when Inga passed away. I said this before I think we had Foxy in. I think it was Foxy after that one. But again, like for me, the first person that looked like me that played for the All Blacks, and I know you spent time on Celebrity Treasure Island, just chatting rugby with the guy as well.
Oh, I didn't spend much time with him previously because he'd been overseas, but he told me many, many stories about some of the things that he fought when he was younger and taking on New Zealand Rugby Association. And, I guess it wasn't really understood how he was supporting his family, and it was amateur days. And then just the way he charmed all of the people who were there, who some of them didn't know who he was. His fight to be the Samoan coach recently as well, and that process there, and how gutted he is that where the state of the Manu Samoa team is. And he was just wonderful and so lovely, just so lovely. And, he'd lost so much weight, and he told me, I hope Daphne's okay with this, he told me he'd got his mojo back.
Oh, good.
But Daphne said, can you touch your toes? And he couldn't. She said, when you touch your toes, you come back to me. Like, oh, okay.
He can touch his toes next week.
But it feels like on your journey you've been blessed with all these really amazing people that have helped you along the way.
Yeah.
And it does feel like you've taken that on and you pay it back and pay it back and pay it back, right?
Yeah, you do. You absolutely do. One of my great friends, Navak Iliolahia, now Rogers, she is at TVNZ. We started at Mana News together. She's very mischief as well. She's head of commissioning, deputy head of content there. And we hadn't worked together for years and years and years, but she knew this job was coming up, and she'd convinced Kate to sit down for a coffee. And that was the moment that Kate decided she wanted something different from that role, because I'm not a traditional GM of sports and events. Usually they're very production based, very technical based, whereas I'm production but more about the commercialisation or, you know, those other parts, certainly culture. And Navaka's been another big help to many, many people. She has brought in a whole lot of different Pacific Island and Māori talent, found them into TVNZ as well. So, yeah, I think we all should pay it back. Yeah.
You're doing a good job. Just moving into sports journalism, you're as well placed as anyone. How are we doing? How are we doing in terms of our women's coverage?
Much better. We've had massive improvements from the data from Sporting Z that they have gathered in the last 3 years. I think the last one was we're up to 21% of all coverage is now female sport. Now that sounds low, but that is a world best. And actually in that data research, they haven't included commentary and live broadcasts of women's sport. So I think that if we brought that into the equation as well, then the exposure of women's sport would be more than 21% by quite some, especially over, you know, last year with Women's Rugby World Cup, Cricket World Cup. You see the Women's Phoenix team, Spark Sport have had the Women's Football Super League on, FA Cup, that kind of thing. So those competitions are getting more and more. I think that New Zealand is doing amazing. And male traditional journalists are now really, really happy about covering women's sport. And that didn't used to happen.
Yeah.
Isn't that wonderful?
And we're here, Black Ferns time.
Yeah.
Okay, I've been hinting at it the whole way.
Great.
Yeah, we've charted our path. No, it just made me think that what the Black Ferns did was so incredible. And we had Kendra on before, and she was talking about the different media treatment she got in her career over the Black Ferns, and how it sort of was basically no one gave a shit, and then now it's good, and it was a place there was a lot of expectation. But that tournament, like what happened has been so good for New Zealand female rugby and New Zealand rugby, but it was close to not, right? Like that semi-final, if France kicked that conversion, we're out in the semis, and it's kind of like, oh, you know, it was all right tournament. What ended up happening was amazing, but like I'm really interested in your experience watching those games. Were you at the ground? Were you living and breathing every moment? Because someone's so much history in the game.
Of course I was. I didn't even go to my bestie's 50th because it was a clash with the final, for God's sakes. So a paper needs to be written on all the different elements that came together to produce the success that was the Women's Rugby World Cup. So remember how we talk about All Black winning World Cup teams and how they have every single small piece come together. You know, around 11 international class players who are in the best position, leadership from senior players, test experience behind them, great coaches, good investment, etc. All those things that sort of the right game plan or players who are able to change game plans at the drop of a hat, blah, blah, blah. Well, that was what happened with this Women's World Cup. I'm on Rugby World Cup Limited board, so I know this started when the decision was made to delay it, where World Rugby decided to put millions of pounds of investment into a new international competition to prepare every single rugby team for the World Cup. It was a minimum of 6 test matches every single nation. That's never happened before. They also decided to put in-kind and extra cash investment into supporting the New Zealand Organising Committee with marketing and other support, and that is why there was quite a bit of budget to get the Rita Ora. That was part of the decision, that they got the money for that. You know, the poi thing. Now that came about because Julie Christie and Michelle Hooper, 2 women leading this organisation committee, chairperson and CEO, decided to bring in a different collective of people who would contribute to how the live event was, and Hinuihi Mohi was one, and she said, well, for an activation we should do something from tikanga, what about poi? And that's where that came from.
Don't sleep on Hoops, eh? Hoops is amazing.
She's amazing, an absolute go-getter. Then Julie Christie and the way she approaches things, she is amazing with this live stuff. She pushes the limits in terms of, she knew it had to be an event, it couldn't be just a sports game. Then we had players who were high profile and special players. We didn't have the experience, but we did have Wayne Smith, who brought on this game plan, and then you had that, like that style of rugby that they played. Nobody does that in a final. You've seen it from the great All Black teams, you know, at times during a match, you might set 60 to 70% of their game plan, but they have a longer kicking game than us, so of course they'd kick it more than us. But you never see a team opting for quick taps behind the 22, not going for kicks in a World Cup final, going for a steal at the front of the line out when the team opposite you has basically just scored tries from line outs 24/7, because that basically opens them up for the drive easy. So that product of what they were playing was unbelievable. And then we had all the kids and the family and the joy and the different crowds. So there's all these different things that came to play, which made it a success. And the very lucky missed goal by Carolyn Drouin, who I felt very sorry for, but the pressure of the crowd. And Dan Carter went to see her the next day. Did you know that?
Really? Didn't know
to
that.
talk her through some of his experiences of failure.
That's class. That's a class touch.
I know.
Just listening to you spout off sounds really negative. Just listening to you speak like so passionately about that. Do you miss being behind the microphone?
I was behind the microphone for that one. Yeah. I commentated for host. I was only allowed on non-Black Ferns games because the Black Ferns games were on TV3 and I work for TVNZ, so that makes sense, doesn't it? So I loved that. I loved being back in the seat. I was second voice, which is probably my favourite position, either that or sideline. I tried play-by-play. I was really shit at it, so I don't like that one. And I got to hang out with, you know, Sean Maloney and all of that lot and Ricky, Honey, who I haven't actually worked properly with Honey before, so it was really, really nice. Yeah, so I do. Do I miss it? I will do it for special occasions, and that one for me was definitely one that I was not wanting to miss.
Seems like a fairly special occasion.
Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah.
Once every 4 years.
Yeah. Clear the throat for that one. Yeah. And did you celebrate with the team? Were you part of the after parties?
Yes, I may have arrived home after the semi-final a little bit too late and may have been having a word from somebody about that. And then after the final, we went to the Barbars Club, and then we went to the the Black Ferns celebration, where I got to drink out of Nancy again. Nancy's the World Cup.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that was nice. And I've got no photos of me with Nancy. I've got this bloody photo of Marcus drinking out of Nancy, who's my husband. I was like, what?
That's not right.
Why are you drinking out of her anyway?
Right. Yeah.
Was this shift to TVNZ always on the horizon? Was it just
No.
a case of serendipity of...
I took a punt. I quit my job at Sky. John Follett again had given me an opportunity to come to the corporate office to work as head of corporate comms. And while I was there over that 13, 14 months, I think when you know you're not actually good at a certain thing, you should probably be reasonably self-aware and either get someone who's really good at it to work with you or get out. And that's what I felt about corporate comms. It didn't suit me. It's you've got to do a corporate message all the time, and it's about you're not black and white honest. You sort of push your message first, and then it's always about dodging direct answers, and I really struggled with that. That was very difficult. And I've also got a brain that is more about, well, I get excited about things that I'm changing or new projects and stuff, and so when it comes to real detail, for instance, emails, I've had to train my brain how to reply to emails properly rather than a brain splat. Right. And actually Kate Slater, she helped me with that, because that's just not good for my,
What do you do? How do you retrain?
I have to do 3 sentences, put the key thing on the top, wait before I send it, reread it, and only CC the people that it relates to, and don't CC everybody.
Yeah.
And don't send 5 emails one after another, which is how my brain works, like this. So it's actually, I've had to be really disciplined in that area. That's tough for me.
Just need a process. Maybe we could get you on that course show.
Yeah.
You're such an asshole sometimes, you are.
Sorry, I didn't finish your question. So no, I quit. I quit Sky. I had no job. I didn't know what was next. I knew that opportunities were very far and few between, so it was serendipity that role was created, and I think I am super, super lucky to have a boss who was looking outside the box with the type of people that she brings in. She's done that a few times with quite a few of our team, and most of it's been really great. Yeah.
And your wealth of experience must stand you in amazing stead for what you do now. Like the names you've rattled off so far through this.
Well, yes and no, because sports production is there's a language that goes with it, and when you are working, when I first worked there, I struggled with some of the acronyms and technology. I mean, that's natural anyway. But what happens there is that people think, okay, we won't involve it in that side, but actually you just have to learn it, and you've got to own all of that stuff, like, you know, fibre linking, how many links come in, blah, blah, where they go, blah, blah, EVS, wankety wank. So I think...
MCU is a mid-close-up, by the way, Steve.
Yeah, that's right.
Thanks, bro.
And being a female, having that role, I'm hyper hopeful that I have credibility, and so sometimes, you know, there's a bit of a struggle there, but I think that I've settled into the role and I know what I'm really good at, and I do get people to work with me on things that I know my brain gets very bored with. Bored.
Are you super busy, Mel? It seems like you've got a big job and you've got 2 kids and you coach the rugby and you've got a husband and you've got all of these boards I assume you're on. Is life hectic?
Yes. I don't know how we fit it in. There's a lot of people like me, though. Actually, a lot of my friends do this too. It's weird. I put rules in place, do emails in the morning, emails late, try not to have a beer or a drink from Sunday to Thursday.
We've broken that rule.
Yeah. Exercise, take time out. I like to clear diaries for things I've got to hyper focus on. Just things like that. There's all these tools I guess I use. Yeah.
Is it manageable? Do you get stressed out?
Not often. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. Well, you know, I'm pretty... do you know I have this rule actually where I go home on a midweek night, and after 8:30, no one's allowed to talk to me.
Really?
Is that on a Wednesday?
I love that rule.
Yeah. I go home and then I say, Mark, it's too late. I'm not thinking about anything now.
What do you do? Just...
I don't know. It's weird. I empty my brain.
Wow. Those seem like really cool rules. Is it Atomic Habits or anything like that you've kind of read a book and gone, these are the things that are going to work for me?
I do read lots of those things. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And you just aggregate kind of the best ideas
that will work.
Put them into what works for you.
Yeah.
I love studying people, It's fascinating, like successful people and what works for them and what doesn't.
I have an alarm clock that's 9 o'clock that means go to bed now.
And do you follow it religiously?
Try to. You know, you don't always stick with that crap, do you?
No.
You know, but in December, that's all out the back door because that's Christmas party time.
It's interesting because Ricky Swinell said you were really disorganised.
I'm disorganised.
Okay. You seem really organised.
No, so I'm a dichotomy. Those things. And then when it comes to wonderful group, it's what she's talking about. Absolutely disorganised with that.
She also said that she stumbled out of your house drunk more times than she cares to remember.
Yes,
and that was all that she gave us.
Yeah.
Marcus, who we've mentioned a few times, at one point was the best amateur golfer in the world.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Did he get you? Do you play any golf? Does he give you lessons?
Well, he's brought me
just for your benefit, Stephen's on a real golf buzz.
Yeah.
Oh.
He's found golf at later life.
Found golf.
Well, he brought me golf clubs finally on Christmas Day. Really good ones, by the way. And just before, the reason he did that is before Christmas, because I'm now a member at Remuera Golf, which it's very cool because, you know, they've got those driving ranges and it's so awesome. And me and Laura McGoldrick and Kirsty Stanway went for a game, and Laura's language was so bad. And honestly, Kirsty was right, but we were crap. Anyway, so I took the boys and him to that range, and both of my kids are pretty good, and had a few sweet ones. And my eldest Jensen was like, how can you be good at that when you don't even play? I fluked it. I'm not good. Yeah. So we went and played just before Christmas, and now I've decided, I've got to do it because my kids are going to do it.
Yeah.
It's good fun, eh? Golf
It's
is
so good.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Yeah, I don't like watching it on TV, but
I've hated watching it. I've hated everything about it until about a year ago, and then I'm all in on golf.
He really is all in.
I don't know. It's captured my imagination. Just something that's really hard that you can get better at over time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know that don't talk to me rule you've got after 8:30? I'm like that with Stephen and golf. I'm like, just don't talk to me about golf ever.
And Shay's got a beautiful swing too.
Yeah,
it's a
I don't
waste.
like talking about it.
He's got a beautiful swing.
Yeah.
I think that might be a pretty good time to wrap up. The way we do things is I say a little something and then Shay creates this big outro, and I bet he's got a good one lined up today because this has been a really cool episode.
Always do this.
But first, I'll say my bit. Thank you so much. Like I said, favourite kind of guest, and you've delivered. It's been awesome. It's just been so. People are going to love hearing this. So thank you for giving us your time. I know you're a busy woman, so it means a lot to us. And I'll throw to the big guy.
It's an inspirational kind of journey that I've been on this week, following your progress from cutting your teeth in front of camera to where you are now. I think it resonates with me even more because you're a person of colour, and at the moment I'm on this my own journey of kind of leaning into that and being really proud of who I am and what I've done. And Stephen spoke to your authenticity and the way that you've maintained that the whole way through your journey, and I think it's something that I personally want to do a bit better as well. I feel like sometimes I kind of hide who I am a little bit depending on what situation that I'm in. So if there's one thing to take away from this episode and the time spending with you, it's to kind of, for me, is to just be comfortable with who I am and what I can bring to a situation, and be comfortable in the knowledge that my experiences will hold me in good stead and that I've actually got something to say. So thank you very much for sharing some time with us today, and I look forward to starting a role with the TVNZ Sports and Events team.
Yes.
sometime very soon.
Yeah, that's right. We're looking for brownies.
Yeah. I had someone on a podcast recently that said, just pick up the phone and ring like the most influential person that you know. So I'll get your number after this and we'll go from there.
Thank you very much for that. And it takes time to be comfortable with yourself, doesn't it? So thank you for that. It's lovely.